All right, so for our second video about elasticity, we're going to look at three other types of elasticity: income elasticity of demand, cross-price elasticity of demand, and elasticity of supply. And the good news is, when you calculate these elasticities, honestly, in all honesty, once you know how to solve elasticity of demand, price elasticity of demand, income elasticity, cross price, and elasticity of supply are actually very easy to solve. So the first elasticity we're going to look at is income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand is used to determine if a good is inferior or normal. And the formula is the percent change in quantity demanded divided by the percent change in the customer's income. So if the customer's income goes up or goes down, how does that affect their demand for a good? If the good is normal, it will have a positive income elasticity of demand. If it's inferior, it's negative. So if you think about it, what that means is if your income goes down, so that's a negative, and your quantity demanded increases, that's going to be an inferior good. Goods you tend to buy more of when you have less money. The second elasticity is cross-price elasticity of demand. And cross-price elasticity of demand is used to measure whether or not goods are complements or substitutes. And when you solve for cross-price elasticity of demand, you're always going to have a comparison between two goods. How does a change in the price of one good affect the demand for another good? Okay, so I have the formula, which is the percent change quantity demanded of good 1 divided by the percent change in quantity demanded of good 2. If the goods are substitutes, it's going to have a positive cross-price elasticity of demand. So what that means is if the price of one good goes up and the demand for the other good goes up, those are substitute goods. So for example, if the price of pens increase, the quantity demanded of pencils increases, you're looking at substitute goods. If it's complements, this answer is going to be negative. Okay, so you need to know substitutes have positive cross-price elasticity, complements have negative. And the third elasticity we're going to look at in this video is elasticity of supply. And this is a measure of how responsive producers are to a change in price. Okay, how much do producers respond to a change in price? This is largely dependent on how flexible the sellers can be. Okay, so for example, some products, no matter what, the price of the good can go up a ton. The producer's just not going to be able to make a lot more of them in the short run. Handmade Ferraris would be an example of this. Some products, by contrast, the producer can be very responsive to a change in price. Okay, small change in price, they can make a lot more of them. For example, when those silly bands became popular, the producers responded by increasing production very, very quickly. And the good news about finding elasticity of supply is the formula is the exact same as the formula for elasticity of demand. Percent change quantity demanded divided by the percent change in price. We're going to go ahead and use the midpoint formula, okay, just like we did. The only difference is when you use the midpoint formula, or when you found, not midpoint, okay, when you found the price elasticity of demand, you always came up with a negative answer. This is largely because the demand curve slopes downward. When you find price elasticity of supply, you're always going to have a positive answer because the supply curve slopes upward. And the other good news is the answers are going to be the same. So if you have a straight up and down supply curve and elasticity is equal to 0, that's called perfectly inelastic supply. No matter what happens to the price, the supply isn't going to change. There are some actually really good examples of products with perfectly inelastic supply. A Van Gogh painting. No matter what, okay, they're not making any more Van Goghs. A Stradivarius violin. Okay, it's a very rare violin that was made in the 17th century. I'm not going to bother trying to spell it, but they are not producing any additional Stradivarius violins. Now, if elasticity is greater than 0 but less than 1, the supply curve is going to be much more straight up and down. Okay, going to be much more straight up and down. And you have inelastic supply. So the percent change in price is bigger than the percent change in quantity. So on this graph, there's a 22% increase in price, leading to a 10% increase in quantity supplied. If elasticity is equal to 1, you have unit elastic supply. So here, we have a 22% increase in price, creating exactly a 22% increase in quantity supplied using the midpoint formula. If elasticity is greater than 1 but less than infinity, you have elastic supply, so the producers are very responsive to changes in price. The change in quantity, okay, here it's a 67% increase in quantity, is much bigger than the change in price. And finally, if elasticity is infinity, okay, you have a perfectly horizontal line and you have perfectly elastic supply. So no matter what, at that price, the supply is infinite. Okay, and we're actually going to talk about a market where this happens when we talk about perfectly competitive markets and why producers are so willing to. Now, for the last part of this lecture, I want to do one income elasticity problem. So a lot of times when you get income elasticity problems, you'd be given a chart like this. So you have a consumer's willingness to pay depending on the price of the good at different incomes. So here we have an income of $60,000 in the second column here. In the third column, we have an income of $80,000. When you find income elasticity problems, okay, you're going to find the income elasticity for one price at a time. So let's say we want to find income elasticity when the price is $30. Okay, we're going to use the midpoint formula again, only we're going to put it, instead of over the price, we're going to put it over the income. So here's what's important. You have to identify your different income levels. So this is going to be I1. This is going to be I2. Okay. If this is I1, 7 has to be Q1, 13 has to be Q2. And now, once I've done that, I go ahead and set it up like I did any other midpoint formula. 13 minus 7 divided by 13 plus 7 divided by 2. Okay, I'm going to put this all over the same formula. We'll go and use some abbreviations. 80,000 minus 60,000 divided by 80,000 plus 60 divided by 2. Okay, that'll be step 1. Step 2, I'm going to go ahead and simplify. I have 6 over 10 divided by 20,000 over 70,000. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator so I make sure I'm not making a mistake. I have 0.6 divided by 0.28. Okay. So my income elasticity is going to be equal to positive 2.14. Now the important part here is that it's positive. Okay, so when I have an income elasticity that's positive, I know I'm dealing with a normal good. And if I look at 60,000, I'm buying 7, but at 80,000, I'm buying 13, right? My income rises, my quantity demanded rises. I know I've got a normal good on my hands. Okay, if this answer had been negative, if my income had gone up and my quantity demanded had gone down, I would know it would be inferior. But because this problem is positive, because the solution is going to be positive, I know I'm dealing with a normal good.